This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
All right. Cool. Thank you for doing that.
No problem.
All right. Well, we will start meeting. It's 4:07. So this is the Monday, April 25th meeting of the Easthampton Energy Advisory Committee. And Jamie Paquette, the chair of the committee. Get started with reviewing and approving the minutes as were circulated via email to everybody earlier. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second motion.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Minutes are approved for March 17th and March 28th, catching us up on everything there. I don't see any members of the public here to speak. So move on to municipal aggregation. And this is where I get to tell you that I did not attend the city council meeting last week, and it's not yet available online, and I don't yet know exactly what happened at that. However, I know that it was being voted on, and I'm fairly certain that it was passed because it was passed unanimously in the committee by JP, Omar, and Connie. And I know Owen and Tom were co-sponsors of the whole thing, so that gets us to 5 right there. And I'm pretty sure between Lindsay and Salem and Brad actually connected me to another person, a young person who's doing some educational research on aggregation that I spoke to. And it sounds like Brad was very supportive of the whole concept as well. So anyway, I'm using their first names. I don't know many of them personally. But so I'm fairly certain that it passed that part of it. So once I can confirm that, the next steps on that would be now with the resolution to go and start. Well, basically, we have to choose how to move forward, which is starting to put together a plan. The option that we have is to put out some sort of bid or RFP for a consultant or somebody to come help us with the process, assuming that we don't have the internal resources to really manage it. Good Energy obviously reached out to us a while. We've been talking to them quite extensively. So there's no requirement that we do a competitive RFP for this. To hear them, and based on a little bit of research I've done, there are about 3 different companies that do this regularly in Massachusetts and other places. I think Good Energy does some stuff in Rhode Island and elsewhere as well. And the quality is similar, and the services you're going to get are similar. So personally, I like that they've stepped up and done stuff for us. They did a whole basically 40-minute presentation Q&A at the council committee meeting. That was really helpful.
What's the name of that company? Green Energy.
Good Energy, GOOD. Yeah. And thank you for.
I'm kind of
taking
trying.
notes. Yeah, and Scott's absence, we'll need some.
If there's a recording, I might take the recording home and do real notes.
Okay.
That might be better.
So I'll look more at what the next steps are. I'm just going to wait till the officially know what happened at the council and reach out to the folks at Good Energy. We can certainly have a discussion about whether we want to just maybe go with them or open it up to a competitive process in any way. Again, I think time, respecting everyone's time and energy is probably the easy way. It seems to be the way to go. But then again, we can check in with the mayor and just make sure that everybody's on board with that before we officially adopt that as the next step.
Do we know? There must be some upfront costs associated with this.
There's not.
No,
they put the whole thing together because they know they're going to manage it for years and they're going to get that small piece. It's like that. You get a 1/10 of a cent in every transaction, basically, and like the sheer volume makes up for it. So, yeah, it does seem a little surprising, but they've got enough going right now that obviously their revenue stream is pretty solid, and they. So that everything they told us is there's no cost to the city, and no cost to run it on an ongoing basis either. Like they basically take it directly from the bill because they handle all the billing. Do they even handle? I'm trying to remember if there's even like a separate billing process, or if it's still, you still get the EverSource bill. I think you still get the EverSource bill, and they're just the supplier of record, or we have a supplier and they're just managing the contract. So all that remains to be seen and worked out, how all the mechanisms work. But
So, question.
Yeah.
Is it one and the same stage in choice of consultant to hire somebody now, bring somebody on to do consulting about what our aggregation will look like and the structure of a bid, and the actual maintenance part of it once we've selected a energy supplier, that they, same consultant, we pick them now to do the planning. It's almost like in construction, you keep them separate, design and build.
Design and build,
separate,
right. I think in this case, we just pick one to do it all. Because again, if you're going to separate that, then somebody's going to want money up front to run that planning and preparation process. Yeah. And they're just baking that into their future earnings. Yeah. So again, we'll check with the mayor on this and just float the idea of how we're going to proceed. We have her support generally for this process. She got a presentation from Good Energy at one point last year, and so should be somewhat familiar. But assuming everybody's okay with that, if we get some pushback, then we can discuss how to proceed. But I think the easy way is the best way. But it's exciting. Exciting to be on the path.
I'm flabbergasted. I think it's wonderful. Thank you so much for making this happen. Great.
I know. I just hope it doesn't take us 4 years to get it all in place.
Well, it's theory. Who is it? Who has DPU?
DPU has final say so.
Like step up and stop taking.
Seems like they're being pushed a little bit. Yeah. We got to do DOER first. They approve the general plan and like what we're doing, and then DPU approves the whole thing later on.
And I know we said that it didn't make sense to try to tie in to the municipal electrical utility that the internet people put together. But it just occurred to me, if we did, could we push it through faster because we were a utility? I'm just wondering.
No, I don't think so. That wouldn't affect DPU at all, because then we would just the city becomes the supplier.
Okay.
Right. That's the thing. Like then you wouldn't even necessarily go out to a bid for a supplier, because the city is going to be, the municipal light plant would be the supplier.
Right. Okay.
And then the municipal light plant is a big mess because they got to buy all the infrastructure.
No, I understand. So I'm not suggesting. I just was wondering if there's some way we could play.
Right.
To get access to that to just make it happen faster. That's all.
Yeah, I don't believe so.
Okay.
Yeah, we just have to get in line. So the sooner we can get through the upfront part about getting a plan together and getting it submitted to DPU, the better.
Yeah.
Right. The earlier place in line we will have. So it'll behoove us to try to move that forward, and that'll be an interesting thing to think about. Like, how are we doing that? Who's doing that? What are the resources we have available to do that? Because obviously we're all volunteers, and there's not anybody specifically in city government that would fall to like project manage that. So it's still going to be kind of incumbent on this committee, I think, too.
And that's why we want this company to really help us.
Yes.
Energy, because they, I assume, have a boilerplate for all of this.
They will have a lot of off-the-shelf things that we can then tweak and adjust for our liking and that sort of thing. So, but step one. Maybe step
Get the mayor to say, okay.
Yeah, there's the city council. Passing it. It's good. All right, so the solar ordinance updates. I know, John, you had said maybe a little something on this. Is there any further on the court case?
I got confused when I looked back at my Gmail. So did somebody else also share that Supreme Court update where the appeal is? Or is that, I don't know if that's the email I sent. It looks like somebody else sent it. Either way, there's a lot more has happened. It said something on here have been taken under advisement. You don't have your laptop, maybe you could open up that email and look at what it
No,
says. but
okay.
I can,
Now, what's your
it's a
email?
status update of this is Tracer Lane versus the City of Waltham.
Oh, yeah, I remember you, okay, I can
This
see.
case, it's argued and under advisement as of March 7th. And then what else does it say? I mean, it lists, and I think it shows attachments for all the filings by the parties along the way. There's some additional ones, and we have our well-known Michael Pill from this area who has always intervened, his law firm's always intervened in environmental cases. I'm not sure what side he's on, but I'm scared if he's on Tracer Lane's side or whatever. But anyway, what does it say in the final March argument sent?
When did you send that? I'm just trying to find
Just
it.
like about an hour before the meeting.
Oh, that's one, oh.
I just decided to check it before I got here to see if there's any news.
oh, I see. So.
I was talking to Jamie Webb about it as well, and that was her understanding. It's like they've wrapped up the oral arguments, and then her experience or understanding, it usually takes about 3 months them to then get to the decision. So
Okay,
maybe June, July, we're hoping.
okay.
So yeah, we'll see. I mean,
This is not a juried case. This is like a judge's
I don't know.
side, right? And like issue some proclamation or something like that.
Feeling it's a magistrate.
Okay.
Yeah,
Or justice.
yeah,
The-
right. So it's the Supreme Court, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. So, right. So, yeah, no jury.
So it's moving at least, but
Yeah.
maybe a few months.
Okay,
And so that means what the decision was to kind of put a hold on.
yeah, no language.
Yeah.
Right, we're not going to do anything.
Just seeing if that decision would have any impact on the solar ordinance as it's signed right now, and then we'll kind of pick up the next point was the agricultural commission.
Right,
So then the process that it was going through until this came up, the court case came up, was it was going to each of these committees and boards to be like, what's your opinion on it?
Yeah.
And the last one that we left off was the agricultural commission to talk to them about the dual use element of it, and all of it is, of course. And that hasn't happened yet because we're kind of like, well, we have to wait for this anyways.
Okay.
And it hasn't gotten set up yet. So,
okay,
but if it's going to be getting information in the next, couple months, maybe. I don't know if it'll change the ordinance, so then we'd have to go back to everyone anyways. I don't know.
right. We may have to rework it, or there may be some things that just override the need for it at all. I don't know.
Yeah, so we'll see. But that's kind of where that one's at as well. Is it's just on
Okay.
hold, yeah.
So Jamie Webb would be the person sort of in the middle of that now with since Curtis left.
Yeah, yep. She's the one who's able to speak most educated about it.
Okay.
She knows the ins and outs better than I do, so she's kind of taking it now through the other boards and
Okay.
committees. Yeah.
Right, because then eventually that would be something that would go through the city council as well,
Yeah,
once
yeah.
that's ready to go. Okay.
Right.
They did hold a meeting, right, on the agricultural committee?
They may have started it, but there might be more talking about dual use specifically. I checked with Jamie Webb before
Yeah.
this meeting, and she was saying, it's not done yet with them.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I tried to find, I don't know if their meetings were online, because I went to try to find them and see if there was anything, but I didn't.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know how often they meet, and I don't know. I mean, my assumption is that it's going back to in person.
Mhm.
So they hopefully remember if they recorded it. I mean, we're recording it now, so I don't know. I don't know what the story is, but
Yeah,
I can try to figure it out.
all right, well, I'll remember to ask about that generally too. I'll put a message into, I don't know, Karen and Lindsay and
It's a good
whoever.
question. I
Yeah,
don't know what I think it can be set up in here. I just need to know how to go back and forth between
right,
the
and
hybrid version and the just recording version.
yeah, and there was just with no communication with all the chairs about like, hey, what do you do? What now that you're coming back? Here's how you should handle things.
It
Yeah.
was a combination of planning department and Concom that drafted the ordinance.
No, Concom was not explicitly involved. I'm the conservation agent, but I did just generally help in trying to give them
Okay.
input where I could.
So plan.
So it's planning department for sure.
Just planning department. We had Maren and I were involved, and Cassie, and then so
Did a working group.
yeah, there was
Yeah.
a working group.
Has
Right.
anybody read through the court case?
I haven't.
See what the city's arguments, I mean, the both sides actually, but
Mm,
just, if you read it, might get a sense of where our ordinance stands in relation to the objections of Tracer for regulating solar
Mhm.
and the objections of the city that we, Waltham saying, well, we allowed solar in certain areas, industrial areas, zoned areas in town. We just aren't gonna convert a residential lot to a
Right.
commercial driveway for commercial access. I mean, I don't know.
Huh.
I feel confident that Jamie Webb has read it, so
Okay.
she's very aware, but I haven't talked to her about it explicitly, but I feel like she probably has.
Yeah.
Well, I'll have you keep an eye on what's going on there, and you can be our
Sure.
point person for
Sure.
updates
I'm sure
from this side.
probably, James probably. on top.
So I just completely lost as far as the notes are concerned. Is this also about the dual use thing or? is
Yeah,
this-
sorry, mix them together, essentially. So,
This is-
yeah,
I
Yeah,
know that
it's all
one
about the
piece
solar
of the business
ordinance.
is about whether or not they're gonna get access to that property and they're all, but what's the other things going on?
so the solar ordinance, this draft copy has been working its way to each board and committee. The next one up is the Agricultural Commission.
Oh,
I don't have an update of them reviewing it. They didn't, because it hasn't been completed yet. And then it's kind of on that getting brought to them is kind of on hold
Waiting.
until we hear what the decision is from the Supreme Court case, because that could impact,
Mhm.
it. Yeah, no problem. I know how you feel. I do. feel
Yeah.
commission, so I often have to tell them to go back.
All right, well, have you going here and get the update on Green Community
Yeah.
Grant.
Yes,
Stuff.
so it's working through for the grant that we got, which is for the Teslas.
Mhm.
That one, right now, the next step in the process is to take it to city council for the appropriation. And the Chief Alberti's working on that, and he's gonna let me know when he gets on the agenda, and I'm gonna go and help him like explain what the project is and all the choices were made.
Okay.
One of the questions that came up was, why did we not go for a different type of electric vehicle? Specifically, Ford has come out with a Maverick that is now on the city or the state bid
Mhm.
list. That was not the case when we went out for this grant.
Right.
No electric vehicles that were of the performance standards that the police need
Mhm.
on the state bid list at the time. There were electric vehicles on there, but there wasn't one, that could go as fast or
Right.
safety ratings, all that good stuff. So that's why we went for the Teslas at the time. And I still think it'll be a good choice. I think that adding in the outreach element of them, that they're really immediately recognizable as an electric vehicle.
Mhm.
And my hope is that they'll be able to take them to like events like Cultural Chaos or things like that and have them there. And people can be like, whoa, talk to me about your Tesla, what's
Mhm.
the deal? And I plan to create, information handouts that they could take with them or, and I'll train all the users on that as well. So I do still think it was a worthy choice.
Who's getting them again, if not the police?
The police department.
Not
is
as
getting-
cruisers, they're just not,
They're not gonna-
vehicles or. they're not-
If I remember correctly, I think they're going to be used by the detectives. There's 2 detectives who are going to use them, so they can still make stops with them,
Mhm.
but they won't necessarily be like their main function won't necessarily be like traffic control. It'll be like, the detectives. And then my hope is that they can take them to these events. When there's an event where they just need a police officer stationed there, take that,
Mhm.
talk to people about it.
What's you have a sense of the timeline for the appropriation?
He was saying, I do, that he's probably within the next few weeks, whatever the next city council meeting is, it's probably the one we're going to go to.
Okay.
I don't know exactly which one and the date of all that. And the third thing of it is that I also have been in communication with the Gazette. They've reached out because they wanted to know the details of everything. So I sent them all the information, and one of their questions, which is a good question, is like, when will we actually physically get the Teslas? And that's a question too, because there's been supply chain issues. So it's a real good question. And I don't know yet when we would actually physically get them. It's
Okay.
too bad, but the grant program is aware of that. And I'm in contact with Green Communities about that.
Yeah.
So, hopefully that won't be like a barrier to fulfilling the grant or anything, or on
Okay.
the administrative side of stuff. So,
Nice.
And you have to get Teslas. Like if it turns out the Teslas aren't available, you can't switch to it.
I think not, because it's just when we supplied the grant, a lot of the information was, what's going to be the difference in miles per gallon.
Okay.
There was technical information that was
Gotcha.
needed.
Yeah.
So I would think that it can't be interchanged. Yeah.
Hmm.
How much is the city's share of the cost at this point?
It's the majority for sure. So the grant was only for $15,000. So that's $7,500 towards each vehicle. And there's 2 vehicles. And the rest of it, my understanding was that it was going to come out of the cannabis stabilization account.
And how much do they cost?
The cost might have changed since the original application, but the combined cost is going to be about $100,000. So
For both?
yes,
Okay.
for both. I can get you the exact numbers
No, I just,
at a different date, but yeah,
we don't need to know that.
okay. Yeah, but it's a lot. It's a big purchase.
Yeah.
But the grant kind of helped with it to a degree. So.
The city's not eligible for tax credits.
Right.
There would be some other money coming in addition to grants if it was
Right.
private purchase.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Isn't that
Makes
crazy,
sense.
the way it's all set up?
Right, well, that's for you to have a private entity buy them and then the city leases it from the private.
Oh, interesting.
entity.
Yeah.
That's probably slightly shady, but, cool. Anything else around green
Oh,
community?
so then for the report,
Mhm.
and this, I know I talked about it last meeting, the report kind of starts, I didn't get to wait till the end of August to start working on the next report. That would be like the earliest possible date because I need the data from, that fiscal year to be over to start.
Right.
So, but I plan to start as early as I can, just because it always ends up being a bit of a scramble at the end. And this is my third time doing the report, and I feel a lot more confident of where I need to go to get the data and how to enter it all. So,
Okay, just a second again. So you're
Oh,
saying
sorry.
with the report, are you talking about asking for, putting another grant?
no, sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, yeah. That's a good point, though. So I'm actually glad you said that. Just last note on grants, we can't go for another grant until we close out the one we have. So that we have to finish the car grant until we can go for
Okay.
another one.
Okay,
The next round of that opens in October, right?
I think there's currently an open round right now. There's 2 per,
Oh, right, 2 per year, but then
Yeah.
I was assuming the next one we'd be able to
Yeah.
go for is probably October.
probably
Assuming we get this,
Yeah.
close out before that.
I'd like to try for that. So,
okay, so what's this report thing?
so the report, no, that's a good question. So green communities, the way that works and how we're able to be a green community and be eligible for these grants is by submitting an annual report
Okay,
of the city's energy usage. And that's done by fiscal year. And I have to wait till the end of that fiscal year to get started on it. And hopefully it shouldn't take me very long to.
and the end of the fiscal year is,
I think it's in,
June, right?
June.
July to June.
yeah, June, yeah. That sounds right. So this summer, late summer, I plan to start it. And hopefully it won't take me very long.
okay,
And I submitted the corrections for the original report. There was just like a couple small things.
Right.
And I haven't, since submitting it, I didn't get any other notices. So I think it's like done, but
Good.
I'll double check, obviously.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. You all caught up, Connie?
yes, well, yes. Even you've received this, I caught up.
And,
Okay.
I'll send you a copy. I downloaded one of those or got it from you or whatever annual reports before. If you want to see what they'll.
Okay, great.
Oh yeah, I might have sent it out at one point because Scott was asking about it for putting on social media. And then I realized like if we didn't get the final send off that it was right. So I was like, oh, let's wait. I think just putting it out there, I mean, certainly we could put it out there in its raw form, but it's hard to interpret. It's just a lot, so some kind of summary of it may be better.
Yeah. Definitely.
I haven't crafted that yet.
I end up probably knowing more about citywide energy use from all the most information than any town department, other town department official.
Well, I don't know who else has access to our account. It's called Mass Energy Insight is like the data center.
Yeah.
So it might be other places have access to it, but that's what I use to get the data from. So.
Did you find the Honeywell report useful? Because they did a lot of, they put a lot of data
Yeah.
on that building. Is it?
I didn't use it to generate the report because Green Communities requires you to use
Oh, I see.
MEI to do it. But I think it is still really helpful and it will be a good tool to help us inform like what grants to go through in the
Yeah.
future, just because
Yeah.
that's kind of where we're at right now. It's like the school was consolidating everything to one new school was
Yeah.
huge for reducing our energy uses. So now the question becomes like, well, what's next? Because our wastewater treatment plants, that's involved in Honeywell to some degree, as I understand it.
So
So
that
that
I don't know if that's going to actually be what happens.
Right.
It's still being evaluated.
right.
Oh.
So it doesn't make sense to pursue a grant until we know for sure. But I mean, it's awesome if it is. And it's like, wow, that's already in the works. And then it becomes, okay, so what's next? What can we go for?
So, look, can I ask you a question about, one thing that Honeywell recommended was some ion, something or other. I forget what it was called, but I looked it up and it sounds really bogus.
Oh, interesting.
You know, like, I mean, it didn't get, like, the stuff I read about it, it's like not accepted technology. It was
Just like an air quality issue?
yeah, something, I don't know what it, I can't remember now what it was. I've never heard of it, but I wonder whether the secondary report will comment on what things are that Honeywell recommended, like they make the machines or something, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't really understand the final status of that. You might know better now because you've been in communication with the mayor.
Yeah, the only thing I heard is at the city council meeting, Councilor Zara did ask for an update. And we can just go ahead and jump to number 7 and cross this off.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay, it's okay, it's fine.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine, it's fine, it's all tied together, so. Just said that, you know, there's still some reevaluating going on and that there's nothing finalized with that. You know, I mean, it was all put together and came together kind of quickly because of the bonding issue that they wanted to pass, or she wanted to pass, to have the money available if we need it or if we, you know, can access it. But
Did they do that?
yeah, that's passed. That was passed.
They also waited to see what was happening with the American Rescue Plan. Right?
Correct. Yeah, there's not right. That was the main thing. They brought another consultant to help, and then with all that happening, like what's going to be available from that maybe we could put towards this. And I think along the lines of what Cassie's talking about with the Green Communities Grant, like just because something's in that Honeywell thing doesn't mean that Green Communities couldn't also fund it, right? I mean, it's just augmenting city funding. The city's just paying for those things out of the bond money, theoretically. But if the Green Communities can help fund something specifically, if we think there's a good option there for that, then we should absolutely do that.
Yeah.
In tandem, or maybe pull that out of that. I don't know. We'd have to see what that looks like. I'm assuming with the bond, they can piecemeal money out of it for like individual projects if they want, or if it has to be all kind of one.
That's interesting. I don't know.
Wax. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting question.
Yeah. Could they just release $50,000 at a time for something, or does it have to be like the whole thing?
Yeah.
So that's I could ask the mayor about that actually when I reach out. Just kind of get an update. Maybe and get 5 minutes of her time to just talk through a couple of things. But since we're on that, we'll come back to the other thing. So you've been looking at the Council on Aging, and what was the other building?
The library.
The library. And so what did you find?
Well, the Council on Aging building needs so much work. There was like one of the problems that they consider to be a major problem is the basement is leaking. And it sounds like it's exactly the same thing that's going on at the library. And the library spent $400,000 on the basement. That included, you know, the other changes they made. But it sounds like they made a big French drain all the way around the building, which is very, very expensive. But the way things stand right now, they have the windows glued shut. I mean, there's water coming in the walls. And so they have humidifiers running all the time. They can't run air conditioners because it makes the pipe freeze. And although there's no visible mold or anything, she said it smells just kind of funky.
Moldy, mildewy,
and the city is planning to put Wi-Fi down there, but she said nobody wants to work down there because it's really unpleasant being in that space. To say nothing, the fact that there's no handicapped access, you have to go downstairs to get to it. So that's the real problem with the building. Another problem in terms of energy is that the way, you know, it used to be a bank. And so the heating, there are these big ducts that just run along the ceiling and open periodically and give heat out, which is fine. It's just going to be a big space, but it means that they can't have walls, floor to ceiling walls. So they have no actual private spaces for any of the kinds of, you know, personal discussions that you would expect the Council on Aging to have with people when they're, you know, giving them support. So that's a problem. Another problem, which isn't quite, well, then the air conditioning, they have window air conditioners, but another sort of general problem with the building is it's very noisy. You know, it's a lot of these really hard surfaces. They have fans running because they're trying to circulate the air. And it's a real problem for people, and they often have more than one activity going on at a time. They don't have walls going up to the ceiling. So it's really a problem, and they often turn off the fans because people can't hear. I mean, really, if we get them out of that space, I mean, that's the obvious solution, which everybody knows. They tried to do that and they couldn't, and then they couldn't rent the space over at the old Manchester Hardware because it was too expensive. So right now they're kind of stuck there. So I guess the question for the city is how long are they really going to be there? Because that should determine what they're going to spend on that building.
Right.
There's serious parking issues. You know, Big E lets them use their parking lot, but that means people have to walk a distance. And so that's the building. You know, I'm sure there are other issues. Those are the big issues of the building. Then the whole issue with the van is all the stuff that you wrote about. That, you know, she was hoping to get electric fan. She wants to get a small one because there are people who need wheelchairs that she would like to be able to zip around when they have appointments and not have to take everybody who have other places they're going along. But it is an electric vehicle like that does not exist. And it's really because of the battery problem. It just takes up so much space. And then the other thing is that there's money available through the Pioneer Valley Transit Authority and the state of Massachusetts for vans, but they're not going to be electric. She said it's highly unlikely to be electric. So,
and what do they use now for
they
transportation?
have 2 old vans, and she said that anything they get will be better in terms of the climate because they're at least new. They'll be newer because I guess they're pretty old.
Right.
So. It's a very challenging, and you know, the handicapped access to that, it just goes on and on. It's a terrible place for them to be, but I don't know what their options are. The library, I didn't know this, you guys, but we don't own, the city doesn't own the library.
Sort of new, but who, was it a nonprofit trust or something?
Well, it was set up by the Willistons many, many years ago, and there's this very odd organizational structure that I don't really understand. It isn't explained well on their site, but you know, there's like this one group of people who are like really in charge, but then under that there's a board of directors, and then there are finally below that the people who actually, you know, work there, and you know, it's an inadequate building for, you know, the things they'd like to do. I was happy to find out from you that they could put solar panels on their slate roofs. I thought that was, I mean, I don't know anything about the siding, but I thought that slate roofs meant you couldn't have solar panels. But apparently that's not the case, although I wonder how expensive it is.
I don't know if it's just a lot more costly.
Yeah. And then the other thing, you know, they're looking for money. I mean, they're desperate for money, and for many things that they want to do. And although they are listed on like a historical site in some way, that there's some other thing that they could do to get a designation that might make them eligible for some grants. But it would limit what they could do if they wanted to sell the building. So, you know, it's just, now one of the things she told me that they did a survey a couple of years ago asking people for input about what they liked, didn't like. A lot of people complained about parking, but that's not going to be an issue once the schools are gone, I don't think.
Right.
You know, I mean, there's plenty of parking around there. I mean, also, you know, you have to walk a quarter of a block sometimes to get to the library, but for most people, I don't think that's really such a big issue. But so anyway, I don't, you know, they both have a lot of really confounding issues.
Yeah, it sounds like with the Council on Aging building, maybe more so though, there would be an opportunity for something either transportation related or even like energy use related in the building, that whether it rises to the level of like a, you know, green community grant or something else, we might even just like try to do.
I think it would be wonderful to try to collaborate with them, because she's been doing a lot of great work trying to get information about those buses and everything. But you know, the building itself, I think it's just overwhelming.
Yeah.
Any one person to try to figure out what to do. I mean, the real question is whether they're going to stay there.
Right.
Do they have a board?
I don't know. They must.
But
it's a city. There's a Council on Aging committee. Is there?
Right.
Council. Probably a council.
Yeah.
I think it's
I
like
guess.
city council.
I don't know.
Yeah, feel free to look it up. And it's not the purview of this committee by any means, but like I do wonder if, you know, with the library or the Council on Aging, with the, you know, the repurposing of these school buildings, and any consideration to like, you know, I mean, those buildings also need work, not the most energy efficient. Certainly
Well, I know one of the, we had those meetings several years ago, asking people, if we could do anything we wanted with, one of the things that came up that a lot of people were enthusiastic about was taking the sort of yellow school, what's the name of that school?
Pepin,
Yeah.
big one, yeah.
And turning, and then building out from there, get rid of the street right there, and then have that be a whole complex that could be the like then you could just expand the library, you could have a senior center there, and maybe also have the preschool there. It would be lovely. And they'd have enough land to have parking. I don't know where that ever went, whether it's actually, we're talking huge amounts of money to do something like that, of course.
Yeah, and I don't know where there is, a committee or a group that's like studying or like, working through the options for what's happening with the buildings. I think they're getting close to a final plan, last I heard, but I don't know the ins and outs of that. But I don't think there's been much consideration to like putting them to use for like city agencies or that's more like, do they get sold for private use or do they become community oriented? How much of this playgrounds and like those sorts of things are we going to maintain? Like, I don't know.
Those buildings, to get them to the point where they could be used, that would cost a fortune.
Yeah. I mean, they're just better set up than like, at least you have like separate rooms and you have spaces, you have spaces for things and like, again, we don't need to get bogged down in that because we don't have any say over it one way or the other.
Right.
But so I guess, to find out, just keep an eye tabs on like with the Council on Aging, I think stuck there for another 10 years. If so, it's probably,
both of the directors are relatively new, both at the library and the Council on Aging. And so I don't think the Council on Aging, because they really thought they were about to move.
Right.
So I don't think that there is a plan in terms of any decisions have been made.
Okay. Well, as we come to the next point where we'll be able to think about grants, those are a couple good things to have on the radar citywide that could have impact that we could push for. That we could try to, again, maybe there's some technological advances on vehicles or something that might be available, or at the very least, like building, energy usage modification, something that would help with that.
So I'm looking for, what number was this on this?
Well, don't really have that. It's kind of wrapped up in the Honeywell RFP.
Oh, okay.
And I didn't really put it on here separately. So I eventually, it's kind of under Green Community Grant Proposal, Honeywell RFP. We kind of are dovetailing those two together. And I'll probably take the Honeywell thing off as like a separate agenda item at this point, and just kind of keep it under, Green Community opportunities. Unless I talk to the mayor and there's something about with the Honeywell RFP that merits discussion specifically.
I wonder if we should invite, not so much the library, but the woman who's running the senior center to come to a meeting.
Sure.
And just talk to us about, whether there are ways we could collaborate with them and just help them out. Would that be a good idea?
I'd be happy to do that.
I'll get to see if she wants to do that.
Okay. All right, we talked a little bit at the outset, I guess, before we were officially in meeting mode, about the school bus electrification. You want to just kind of walk us through your
one thing
updates?
Occurred to me is that I don't think we actually ever responded to the letter from Dale Doran.
Oh.
But now she's gone, I believe.
This was her last, she will be at the end, maybe the end of the fiscal year, end of the school year.
I mean,
so
even so, the superintendent's name, I think, was on the letter, so maybe responding would be good. But now I think having heard the perspective of the Northampton Transportation Coordinator, some of the things we thought that we proposed in that letter, like having the bidders simply bid on the labor of a driver to get a grant and come up with the money, not realistic.
Right.
There might be other opinions on this, but she thought it wasn't realistic. She's been around a while. The bus companies won't, because of liability issues, operating somebody else's equipment, are not likely to just provide a driver for us to use on an electric bus.
Right. The city
Makes some sense.
Yeah.
That was one thing we had proposed, and the other was just providing an option bid on how much it would cost to, say, run a certain route with an electric bus, what would they charge us to do it with an electric bus versus the diesel?
Mhm.
She thought that, her name was Tammy Liebner,
Mhm.
who lives in Easthampton. By the way, she's got a big farm right at the end of Parsons Road on East Street. Cattle on the hill. That's
Oh,
the transportation coordinator
Oh,
for
funny.
Hampton.
all right.
That's just that. But she said they're not going to give a price. They don't currently have, at least Durham doesn't currently have any electric buses in its fleet.
Right.
So therefore, very unlikely for it to risk putting some, firm numbers in a bid
Mhm.
about what it would cost. I mean, I don't know that that's forever the case. I think the
Right.
company, it's a national company. They see the writing on the wall. They're trying
Well.
to figure this stuff out. And
Isn't
Right.
there some city or town that is doing exactly what you described there? They have like 2 or 3 routes. I read that somewhere.
Amherst.
Is it Amherst? It's
I think
somewhere.
Amherst says it was more a pilot program that they've been doing for a couple of
They
years.
had a pilot program a long time ago, but
I'm confused about that. I read the reports on the pilot and all
I
the
did
problems they
too.
had. They
That was
were
a
on
long time ago.
Cambridge and
yeah.
Amherst in 2015, and
Yeah.
then that reports came out 2018 or something. But you were talking about, I thought there was something.
There's something
Like-
currently.
I think it was like
Yeah.
PTA maybe even. Was
don't know.
doing
Oh,
something.
maybe that's what
I
it
think it was them that was they're gonna test out an electric route or two.
Oh, at the UMass campus in Amherst at UMass. But
Mhm.
I think you were right when you originally said Amherst as a bus or something.
I
because
just feel like I
I had
read
said no,
that.
but then I came across something that said, not the old experiment 3 years ago, but that they were doing something. We need to get to the
Right.
bottom of that because they'll have help to have somebody local who has direct experience with it. But what Tammy Lieber said is that there's a pilot study running in Burlington, Vermont, that is testing 3 different electric buses
Mm.
supplied by 3 different manufacturers. And they were gathering data this whole last school year, particularly through the winter, and should have results fairly soon about how well that worked, how reliable they were in a very cold climate, because that's a concern about
Right.
batteries, I guess, not holding their charge because of cold weather.
Mm.
And that should be available soon. So,
That
Okay.
will be very interesting.
I mean, there are some interesting things, the stuff you've dug up and others. I read the articles, they're talking about exceptions for bidding, contracting rules to allow municipalities to do 10-year contracts, that they hire
Doesn't
a
make sense,
company
yeah.
that can spread the capital costs out over a longer period of time. I've heard that maybe in 5 years, they're predicting that the buses may come down from 300,000 down to 230,000,
They very well
which
could.
is a big jump.
Yeah.
And, Northampton's school committee, wise or not, has gone on record saying they're not going to buy any non-electric
Mhm.
buses in the future.
So they own their own buses?
No,
No.
they have 5 or 6 small,
Van?
actually working as a school bus monitor for them part-time.
Oh,
So I'm on those buses. One thing somebody ought to look at is the idling that happens
Yeah.
both at Ferry Street in Northampton, where all the buses for 3 whole school districts warm up in the morning, and
which is illegal, there is.
it's a 5-minute idling rule if you're not, but,
Yeah.
even in the JFK parking lot where
I
I
know.
go to meet, they run them for an hour in the morning, but that's
Mm.
another issue.
Yeah,
And Northampton has 5 buses that they take special needs kids to school in,
right.
and,
Okay.
The rest is like, there's
Well, we
8
must do
Durham-
that too. Do we own those buses or
No,
those vans?
I think those are
They're all
sand
the-
van pool or something, yeah.
Yeah, that's a separate company they contract with for that. Well,
Where to go with it, I don't know. I think it'd be good if, I was hoping Marin would be here and we could talk with him about school committee's interest in,
right.
working with us long run to look at the steps and the hurdles, and is there any collaboration can be done with Northampton or other
Right.
communities on.
Right, especially if we're both using the same contract.
Right,
Let's
Hampshire
put some
Regional has the
pressure on
same contract.
Yeah.
down there on Ferry Street.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I mean, I think that's still, I mean, he's not here today, but that's a conversation we still want to have with them and put that at the forefront, hopefully, of any, future discussion about transportation.
That could be a big unmeasured right now, essentially municipal emission that's not being captured by the Honeywell work or anything.
Most of those vehicles are exempt under green communities, like the police vehicles are, and that would
Really?
assume buses as well are exempt for, towards our calculation of energy usages.
Oh, for the.
They don't include the buses because it's not, you need them. And there wasn't
Right.
necessarily, there wasn't an option before
Right.
to deal with it, so.
So if you happen to, even if you happen to own your own fleet of buses and run it as a municipality, would still be exempt? You're saying
like-
the police too.
yeah.
Polices are not
They're-
considered.
Yeah, but in terms of so you can have these vehicles and have that be, doesn't count towards your total energy usage under green communities because they're they're exempt.
Hopeless.
You need them.
People think it's hopeless.
Well, I don't know about that, but it includes all the fire trucks and all the police vehicles and stuff like that. It's
Yeah.
exempt. So
Yeah.
we get that data, but it doesn't go towards
Yeah.
whether or not, because green communities is trying to get us to reduce the amount compared to our baseline year.
Yeah.
Right.
It doesn't, it goes with that information.
So did that factor into the grant for the police vehicles then?
I made that point that it's we're replacing vehicles that we technically don't have to,
Mhm.
and it's starting there. And then I don't know how I included this in the grant or if I did it all, but the way that my understanding it's been working is that the police vehicles kind of work their way down into the rest of the fleet. Once the police don't want them anymore, they kind of, because one of the assessors
Oh,
right now is an old
Yeah.
cruiser.
Right,
So,
right.
To the
We can
Conservation
start
Commission.
there, yeah. And they could, yeah. I don't have a vehicle.
Okay.
I get access to vehicles.
I also wonder whether the school system and the council on aging could collaborate with each other around buses, especially these handicapped buses. They must,
Right, the
I'm
smaller
sure
ones. or
that
something.
happens with the schools, that they have transport capabilities.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Right.
maybe they could maybe the council on aging could get in on their lease. That might help them a lot.
Yeah,
I don't know.
interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I made a note on here about some things that I've shared, I think just maybe with you, John, or with you and Maren in an email chain. But,
Yeah.
there were some updates besides what I meant to hear. There was a whole article about a community or an area in California that's really committed 100% to electric buses. It's gone really well. Again, I had it, but Boston, city of Boston committed to I think 10 to start with, take 10. So they're committed, making a commitment to 10 buses, electric buses for their schools. And New York State set a goal for the entire state to electrify their bus fleet.
Wow.
The next 10 years, I think
Wow.
2032, something like that. So they're just going straight in. They're just we're going to do this from the top down and not.
And by when, I'm sorry?
I think by 2032,
Those articles you sent.
yeah, right. If I didn't share them with you, I was
Okay.
just replying to something and
I don't
figured we'd
need.
bring it up. But yeah, so I mean, that's a lot. And those are just within the past 2 months that those things got mentioned, so and there's only just kind of been on our radar and we see it starting to happen. It's going to snowball,
Yeah.
whether the school committee, whether it happens with us or not,
Yeah.
it's going to be out there.
Yeah.
But we can certainly push it to happen a little bit faster. And see, again, maybe at the state level, there would be something. Maybe not with this administration, who knows, but so it's possible that something else could come. But a partnership with Northampton, with Hampshire Regional, as we go forward. So, and then again, where there's pilot program opportunities, again, maybe it's with the Council on Aging kind of thing.
I think that would help the council on aging out a lot.
Right, so we should look out for, if there's pilot programs that aren't necessarily school limited or something like that, that could be a possibility for something like that. And those vehicles, would those vehicles count towards a reduction for city youth? The Council on Aging is running buses and things like that? Are those included in the calculation?
Well, that's a good question. I think potentially not.
Okay.
Because a lot of the bigger vehicles are just exempt. But yeah, it's a good question. You have to look into it. Because, yeah. I'll have to figure that out. I'll make a note.
Okay. All right, so, we can talk with Mary about it, more, and then maybe, I don't know what obvious next steps are for that. If somebody else has some ideas, I'm certainly open to hearing them. Whether it's even just like, going and speaking up at a school committee meeting or something like that, and just like during public speak time or something, and just putting it on the radar as like a first step. Just say, hey, this is something we're talking about as a committee. We'd love to have more discussion with the school committee well ahead of the next round of contracts, and make sure that it's on your radar.
Yeah. And for whether it's them or us, Highland Electric is ready to come and do a little 10-minute, spiel on.
Oh, that could be good too. Yeah, if they want
It'll
to.
be probably. Well, you might need to take some with a grain of salt. It'll be a more flashier and interesting,
Right.
multimedia. Highland Electric's a company that would would provide an all-in service with electric buses to a school department.
Oh,
And
is that the same company that's the company you've been
yes,
talking
all
to?
in, but not labor though. I think there was somebody, Tammy in Northampton thought they supplied labor too, but I'm pretty sure they don't.
Yeah.
They talk about training your drivers.
Right. So that's the other issue with that. But yeah, I mean, maybe we could get them to make a quick presentation at a school committee meeting. Maybe we can, introduce it, talk to Marin about that, and see if they'd be amenable to try to get that on the agenda. When, again, especially when it's not budget season.
Yeah. Yeah.
What about that? Okay. Well, I think that's a good next step there. Just kind of keeping it on people's minds. And other public education opportunities. We move down to that. Talked a little bit about community solar, and I did a little bit of research. I think Marin last time said, maybe not worth doing too much about that. Number one, we don't want to be promoting a specific company or a specific business necessarily, of which his company would be one. Number two, there may not even be that much community solar available for people right now. Like there's a lot of things have been subscribed or oversubscribed. So I did some research in that, and there are definitely 3 options around here. Like anybody around here could sign up for one. There was like one in Pittsfield, one in another small one in Springfield, and one somewhere else. But there were definitely things that were available to people.
Well, if we invited all of them.
Yeah, we wouldn't have to invite all of them. It could just be more of like a edification. Yeah, just like, hey, who wants to learn about community solar?
Yeah.
And just like, and here's what you could do to sign up. And there's a company called Energy Sage that like has information. Now what happens is I think they get a referral bonus from companies when people go through them and then sign up. I think some money comes back to them that way. They're definitely not doing it for free totally, but they're also like very sort of education focused.
So they would organize it for us.
Yeah, they could we could work with them to put something on the calendar and then promote it out to people and just say, hey, here's half an hour, learn about community solar, learn if you're interested in solar for yourself as a owner, but you can't do it on your house for whatever reason, or you don't want to put the upfront cost in, or you're a renter and you'd like to buy solar for your.
So I assume one of the things that they do is they have information about what is available from the state in terms of tax incentives.
Well, you don't get incentives from the state for community solar. So that's what they would explain is like how it works. Like you sign up and basically they become your supplier and you're able to.
Okay, I'm confused. I thought we were talking about solar companies. I'm confused what we're talking about.
Talking about community solar as an option for consumers.
Oh, and before we get okay, I understand.
As just something to educate people about. That's okay.
Okay.
No, to educate people about for what they can.
I mean, what if we had like an energy fair and we got Mass Save to come, not that they're much use, but to talk about here are all the things that are available that there are incentives for some of this stuff. You can get an insulation. You just had to be an energy fair, and if we really got lucky, you get electric cars in there. Every once in a while,
Well,
there's
that's, yeah,
where people.
get the electric cars, we can do a big event, an unveiling event around the,
Oh, yeah, but also, I mean, I was at something a couple of years ago, and there were people there with electric cars. They weren't even new. They were just showing people electric cars. I think some of them were the ones they themselves owned.
yeah.
And I don't know who those people are, but they just go around with information about electric cars.
Mhm.
They're not selling them.
Right,
But it might be, I mean, that might be a nice thing to do, maybe in the fall. We need
Yeah.
time to get together, but
yeah, right, I wanted to even just like for like a thing like cultural chaos or something, like they give you a table and like
yeah,
just
that would
like
be great.
talk to people.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
I think it'd be useful for people who want or considering or thought of solar on their own homes and are just not certain what to make of the pitches they're getting from the various solar companies.
Right.
And you have multiple companies there, or maybe even somebody from a solar energy association is more neutral, or
Right.
can answer questions.
Yeah, I think I think that would be wonderful.
Yeah, it's just something that I think, people would take advantage of more if they knew it. And again, then things get subscribed and then there limits the opportunities. But it's just a great, easy way. Like you don't have to do anything. You just sign up and all of a sudden you're getting solar and it's a 10% reduction in your costs as well.
What is the pros and cons of community solar versus if we're heading with municipal aggregation and we're giving people an option there? I mean, it's down the road.
Right.
But-
Yeah, right. It's a good question. I think you could still do both. I think you could be like a municipal aggregation customer because again, Eversource is still my supplier, but like basically the community solar gets me a credit on my bill. Essentially, so it's almost like a separate third-party service.
Also, realistically,
So I pay them, and then the credit shows up on my bill. So it actually is almost like decouples it a little bit.
the aggregation, even if things go completely smoothly, when's the likely start date?
Yeah, right. I mean, we're talking 2 years, probably minimum would be my guess.
So
2024, if all. But maybe in an ideal world, it could happen a little faster. But that's assuming a lot of things going smoothly and that people have time and energy to put into them. But,
and then heat pumps and electrification could be part of that as well.
right. Yeah, because so you had an update on the heat pump.
Yeah, I don't know if we're ready to go to that part.
Yeah, we can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I had my most recent meeting with the kind of group that's working on trying to develop this. It's with DOER and like all these other state people. And then it's me and Chris Mason over in Northampton.
Mm-hmm.
So they sent us our first kind of very preliminary.
I'm sorry, I have to stop you. What exactly is this group?
Yeah, so this is related to, there was those gas explosions in Lawrence.
Oh, okay. Now I know what you're talking
Yeah.
about. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
all these threads to tie back to.
I know.
We're talking about the little boondoggle we have going that we're getting money because of that. Okay,
Yeah.
now I know. All right.
I know,
just
it's crazy.
I was
Yeah.
what you're talking about.
There's a ton, But okay, so we had, and it's all very amorphous too, so that's part of why it's confusing. So the people with the state agencies kind of submitted this very skeletal, early days straw proposal. And we had a meeting about it, we were talking about it, but the quick element of it is, and I sent you all this, not even an hour before the meeting, so I apologize for that. But basically what they were trying to do is say, okay, we're gonna take, how did I write it here? They're gonna hire kind of this lead vendor for 20% of the funds goes towards just hiring this group to administer this for people. Because there's not really, Easthampton doesn't really have the capacity and neither does Northampton to have staff people to help people use this.
Right.
And so a chunk of it's gonna go to that right away. And then basically, again, still split up 70-30, 70% of it's going to Northampton, 30% it's going to Easthampton. There's
And
wiggle room.
you think that's fair?
I think so. I mean,
Okay.
it's based off of, that was something that DOER came to just based off of how many customers there were for
Oh, I
natural
see.
gas company in each town
I see. Okay.
when it all went down. So they're open to different configurations, but it does make sense to me that more of it would go to Northampton. It's a bigger town and
Mhm.
they probably have more people. but basically helping people make these conversions. And so it would be like they kind of create this kind of concierge service to help people through, get this home energy audit, and then kind of move forward to actually getting the heat pumps installed.
You know,
This is air source or ground
I have
source?
some comments.
What's that?
This
Sorry?
is air source heat pumps?
I would think so.
Yeah,
I don't know.
What other kind are there?
there's ground source heat pumps.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm sure.
Mini splits are essentially air source heat
I'm
pumps.
sure they are.
And we talked about, there was a restriction on the state grant program for ground source heat pumps to customers who were on, it's right, on oil or some heat other than oil or propane. I think you're eligible, but not if you
Heck, yeah.
already had gas.
Yeah.
Which is frustrating me because I have gas and I'm interested in ground source heat pump. But anyway,
Do you know if there are any restrictions like that associated? Well, that was, the explosion was gas, so surely there wouldn't be a similar restriction
My understanding is that the money has to go towards helping people convert
from
away
gas.
from gas to the heat pumps. So, yeah, that is the main like goal of it. But so, what people would get from this concierge service would be an audit and a home consultation.
Oh, so it wouldn't be Mass Save's audit?
Well, that was the other thing of it, is that that was a question. Like, people could do mass saves, but it's trying to figure, the big thing that we kind of, I don't even know if we sorted that out yet, because the big thing was trying to figure out, like, who are the homes that we're trying to target with this, because they were kind of figuring out, like, what's like the moderate income level, this kind of, again, the discussion was focusing on like this kind of where the gaps are in terms of like people who are much lower income
Right.
have some of these already services available to them. So it's like, how do we get to this more mid level? And that's people at the state's understanding. So, they were saying things like home value being moderate income incentive. So home value is less than 250,000 and all kinds of good stuff like that. Using the tax assessor data to kind of figure out these home values.
Yeah.
But so just going back a little bit, the kind of overarching thing that everyone seemed to agree on was a good idea was to hire this company, use the funds to hire this company to create this concierge service. So what people would get from it would be an audit and a home consultation, a blower door test and air sealing, and then the heat pump design review. So I don't even know that it would actually be paying for you to actually get the heat pump, but kind of like filling in the gap of some people, they don't know where to start. They want to,
home console and
Design review.
blower door test and air sealing, and then heat pump design review. So, this folder is kind of all of it that I have here. And Chris Mason did a deep dive on it, and he was trying to figure out, the income thing. Who are the people, renter information, owner occupied information. That's kind of where we left it off, is trying to figure out like who are these target people that are meeting this kind of, thing. And trying to think what else.
Can I ask you a prior question, kind of foundational one? I did this before, but why is Easthampton and Northampton being gifted with this attention and potential money? I mean, how did that come about?
Part of the settlement for the gas explosions that happened in Lawrence with the state was to give money to certain communities.
So I think because we have a moratorium on gas service in the Easthampton, Northampton, I think that had something to do with that in some
Makes
strange
sense,
way.
yeah, that we would need it more than places that don't have a moratorium. But Columbia Gas had a lot of municipalities where they had customers, and they can't be giving out that much,
I don't
this
know.
amount of money to all their customers. Okay, so we have it.
Good.
That's good. Is it pretty much guaranteed that it's coming?
I would say yes.
Yeah.
How
Okay.
much money are we talking about?
The original amount.
150,
100,000
150,000 total?
I believe.
That's between the two.
Between the
Yeah.
two.
So Easthampton's not gonna really get that much
It's like
money.
$45,000.
This estimate at the last meeting was that it would serve 70 to 140 households. Not a huge amount of people. It's not nothing.
Right.
No, it's
It
not.
matters.
It's not nothing, yeah, for
But
sure.
it's not going to be this huge program that's going to exist forever after. It's like, we're just going to try to help these people, as many people as we can, and it's going to go.
And I don't suppose that they're including people who have propane.
I don't
think
know.
they should.
I don't know. That's a good
Probably
question.
not.
The lead group, do we know yet who that lead group who might have the concierge service would be? I mean, it's not that they haven't nailed that down yet.
For too early days.
And did you say that?
Because that's not even finalized, right? That that's exactly the plan that's going to go
This is the
forward.
straw, like very preliminary straw proposal that we're trying to be like, okay, now we get something to work with.
So may I just make a comment about this? I was involved several years ago with an attempt, someone gave money to start an organization that would collaborate with Mass Save and try to do essentially what you're talking about, like we went door to door, it was in Northampton, and asked people if they would be interested in having solar, and what was supposed to happen was they were going to get all this information and they'd get referrals, but that's where it completely broke down. Because who exactly who are the referral people to actually install this stuff?
Right.
That's where it completely broke down.
Interesting.
So it's just something to think about, that it's all very well to do this nice little concierge service where you tell people what they need, but exactly what do they do to get it?
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, and like, why do you make sure that things get followed through, right? There should be something tied up and actually moving forward.
Yeah.
with
Yeah,
Something.
and that's actually a very dicey piece of it too, because we're talking about businesses.
Right.
And are we referring, how do we decide which businesses are going to actually get on the list?
Mm-hmm.
So
I know, I do remember some kind of discussion kind of like that, of being like, who would, trying to like create a thing where there are kind of these contractors who are pre-approved.
Well, that's what Mass Save had pre-approved contractors, but for many reasons, part of it was communication, but it just fell apart. And that was where it
We
fell
didn't have
apart.
pre-approved contractors for solar installations and for ground and heat pumps.
Well, it wasn't, Mass Save it was this other organization that was trying to collaborate with Mass Save, in theory, did that.
Yeah.
I don't really, I
Yeah.
just walked away at a certain point because it just wasn't working.
This was happening
That's part of
locally.
what
This was happening
It
locally.
was in Northampton,
Northampton.
yeah.
How long ago?
Maybe, well, let's see, probably 4 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago.
Maybe Chris Mason knows about that.
He probably
He's
does. I
been
would
around
think.
long.
I don't
I don't know
know.
if you caught my email late today, but I sent you something, but he was mentioned very highly by the bus transportation
Oh,
coordinator, Lieber.
I have a feeling
Jimmy
he
Lieber,
wasn't
Northampton.
there. How long has he been there? Do you know?
I think
Oh,
it's
you
actually
see
a
that
while.
city
I
engineer?
Googled him. I think it's a few years at least been there. But I hear he's like, according to her, he's kind of guru about anything about infrastructure, charging infrastructure
Nice.
and that kind of stuff.
He's been great to work. I mean, I have to say, he's like taken on the majority of the review of this, because it's really out of my wheelhouse to a degree.
Yeah.
And so he's been huge for just moving this along. Of course, the people from the state as well. So, one of the things I emailed to y'all was this folder that has everything in it. Here's a
thank
physical
you.
version, but
I didn't get that.
I sent it to the email that had the agenda originally.
Yeah, if you look in the
And all the
agenda
people were
thread,
threading, saying like, I'm not gonna come. And that's,
Okay.
I can send a separate one.
I'll check. It's got to be there.
Yeah,
then. I'm
it's
just
in there.
missing it. I get lost in those threads.
I know, it's a lot.
I know sometimes I try to remember, like, where was that in that thread or something?
I'll send a separate email, and with the link and all these documents, because it's a lot to wade through, and I have a lot here. They've supplied a lot of information. These email threads are the most helpful, I would say. I feel like these communications in here, they have all the supplemental information about Barrier 1 cost of housing and renters, and this document on residential metering study, and yeah.
There's the guy, Central Services, Northampton Central Services. His background's like electrical engineering.
Yeah.
I think the woman who runs the Council on Aging has been in touch with him too about car. He's like, I think she also sang his praises.
Yeah, he's been awesome, really awesome. I appreciate him so much for this. So, summary is, I guess it's all pretty amorphous still. I mean, I guess what I'd
I
ask,
think it's a good idea.
okay, that was kind of the general thing I was hoping to see, like, do you just think like this generally sounds like a good way to just keep going?
If you're not gonna fund very many actual hardware in people's houses
Right.
for that amount of money, but one thing that would be good is that there be an accompanying sort of feedback process to gather data about what does this lead to,
Right.
does it meet the people's needs, survey the people you
That's a
work with,
very good point.
how many of them led to action on their part, what are the obstacles, kind of the gathering part, so that they could say, well, this is a model that we could replicate,
Right.
elsewhere to get things off the ground.
I agree. Yeah, there should be a measurable component of it on the back end if at all possible. I think
That's a good
useful.
Okay. So what I'll ask is, I emailed that, I'm gonna email you all again, so it's like a separate thing. And then maybe people can, not reply all, just reply to me, so that it's still, just any comments you have on all of it.
Mhm.
Or questions,
Yeah.
if you're trying to pick through it and be like, this doesn't make sense, I can try to kind of
Okay.
get that information. And, because I think we're gonna meet again, I don't know, end of this month, so like not too far from now, probably. And we can go from there, but, meet with these heat pump people. I think once we get like closer to the end, I might even like ask maybe Chris to come to one of our meetings and help explain it.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Because again, it's just like,
The other thing it's good about this is that you're sort of developing a collaboration as well among you in Northampton, which is,
Yeah.
I would think, good for us.
yeah, they've been so helpful and yeah, the more we can collaborate with
Yeah.
everybody, it's good.
Ah, there it is. I found the little arrow that drops down. Right here you are.
Right.
Ah, there you go.
That's red, okay.
Good. Yeah, I'll think through. If you're to send that out, we can all offer a little more feedback directly to you.
Okay.
I think trying to maximize, impact versus spread is definitely a good way to go.
Yeah, yep.
Generally, but certainly some discussion that they had about what's the best way to do that.
Yeah.
It's
And
tricky.
I think there was, like, honestly, the last note was that I think it's technically going to be administered by, ultimately, the Mass CEC Commission has to sign off on this all.
Mm.
So that, I wasn't sure. I didn't ask. I don't know. With
It wasn't
CEC
all-
Oh, is it the Clean Energy
Coalition?
Coalition or something like that, or
Oh,
collective or something?
Maybe
Yeah.
that adds up. So
Yeah,
they're
Not
the
a
ones,
collective,
Not a
not the
collective.
state, not the state level. They're not yet doing collective.
No,
Okay.
not a Soviets.
so that was the kind of caveat though, is like this state agency really has the final say at the end of the day, and they're going to sign off on it and like do it. And then there's some kind of June board meeting that we're trying to like have something to present at that time.
It's Massachusetts Clean Energy Center.
Gotcha.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So,
But this is also sort of a pilot for finding ways to help people make this transition. I mean,
Right, and for-
really a gift to Easthampton that this is happening, if we can get good information
Yes.
about how it works.
oh
Right.
yeah, even just renter, retarget people, like,
Yeah,
Just that
and
data.
if we do get real feedback, real data, as you were saying, that could be great.
Right. I mean, the goal for a lot of people on the climate front is, long-term electrification of everything.
Right.
So it's what you'd want. Just find easy ways to do that.
Cool, very cool.
Yeah.
I want to ask if, has the committee, you've been on it 3 years now? 4?
Me?
And
Two.
2, okay.
Because, yeah, February 2020,
Right.
I think in this room maybe was like my first meeting.
I'm wondering if it's easy to do kind of ad hoc stuff as they pop up, not putting out fires, but getting attracted by fires and
It's like the moth to, yeah.
yeah, right, and following action that's happening at all kinds of other levels. And that's not bad, but I'm wondering if it's worth spending some time thinking about, we've got maybe some federal plans going on for zero emissions. We got a state plan, have some ideas at the local level, and maybe people have goals that they haven't really, gotten approved or committed. But I'm wondering if this committee could use some goals and objectives and some timetable for approaching those. But
I love that.
keeping in mind that based on what we know about what we generate for emissions from various sources. And it's not just the public sector. It's not just what the town does. That's important, but then there's what all of us do in our businesses and homes. And for us to be on board and on track as a community with the state, potentially with a state roadmap for getting down to 0 by 2050, what would we have to do at the local level to do our share of that? And so it's kind of where are our missions? And Honeywell's done a lot of that work, although that tends to be the public side. We can probably get the private side pretty easily from general data about emissions by households and businesses and vehicles and all that. But you know what I'm talking about? I was just kind of thinking about.
Kind of in that same vein, one of the things I went to there's this group, Pioneer Valley CECA. I can't remember what that acronym stands for right now. I apologize. But they were talking about how some communities have completed a net zero study to have a plan, generate a plan for, okay, here's the steps you need to take. Because I agree with you. Like, I think Easthampton has done a lot of stuff to become, less energy, reduce our fossil fuel usage and, all kinds of good stuff, but it's all kind of like here and there and bunched about. And I wonder if bring it all together and get a cohesive plan of how to go forward. And so what I was going to try to do was reach out to, I'm on a listserv of conservation agents and ask them, has any of you all ever done anything like that? Or I know Northampton has one. So they did one. They did a study on how to get to net zero. So
well, a lot of communities, they don't have just energy advisory committees, energy advisory sustainability.
Right.
And I actually had a conversation with the mayor a long time ago about changing the name of this group so that we can, and changing the mandate, because the mandate is,
energy focused.
Well, it's focused on the municipality as opposed to the community as well. So I think that's a great idea to really just take the time, and it would have to be more than one meeting like this to really think about what and look at what we want to do. And a lot of cities have websites with a lot of that have already done this with a lot of great ideas and information that we could sort of pull from, I think, too. We don't have to do it all on our own.
Right. Well, it's the thing, even just aggregating the stuff that we already do, like the solar of the schools, and making some of that information readily available. Putting this stuff, front and center. That's one thing that aggregation would potentially allow us to do, right? Is to put more info out there, have a central thing where we, actually measure the impact that it's having in terms of promotion, renewables, and things like that. The city has 10-year plan? Does the city have a
master plan?
Master plan? Is that updated every 10 years?
I looked at the last one. It says very little about energy.
Right. No, I know. That's why
we have a green infrastructure master plan. We have a hazard mitigation plan, which I feel like potentially could include resiliency at least. Doesn't really talk about getting to net zero.
What was the title of that one?
Hazard mitigation plan.
Yeah.
The open space plan kind of gets into saving land. It's each one of these kind of get the piece that isn't.
Right.
And one of the reasons it would really be useful to do this and to make it formal is that when they were developing the school plan, for example, I asked, and I actually ended up corresponding with the architect, who was very nice about it, considering I was bugging him, but why didn't we use geothermal to keep that building?
Right.
And the reason we didn't is, first of all, the city had no policy about, how we were doing something like that. And it would have cost more money, but ultimately it probably would have saved a lot of money because we wouldn't have been paying for gas. But it was there was no push to do that from the city at all.
Right.
And that's the kind of thing that happens when you don't really have a plan in place.
Right. And when, a school bus contract goes to bid and nobody for even a second considers, hey, what are our options here from an environment standpoint?
Yeah. So I think that's a wonderful, wonderful idea. And it might take us, we might have to have a day meeting or something to really hash it out.
I kind of think of it as an iterative process where you gather the information that's available at a particular time and try to assess where where you stand in
Yeah,
terms of your goals, right now, and start articulating what possible goals and target dates, but then you find out about more technologies or about grant programs and it changes. And I think that's kind of how the state plan is sort of built that way too. Technology is changing and you have to kind of,
Right.
have to be flexible and something in an update.
One thing that we were talking about trying to do after I went to this PVCECA meeting was, could we hire a consultant to create the plan for us? So we did that for our open space plan. That can kind of really make it happen, or take some of the weight off of the shoulders of y'all or volunteers,
Right.
So,
Right.
I was going to reach out to the solicitor and be like, have anyone else worked with a third party to like get this created?
well, some cities have full-time employees who, that's just what they do.
I
Right.
know, yeah. And
Like, yeah, Greenfield, like Carol, who I spoke to
Yeah.
about aggregation, that's like
Yeah.
a full-time job.
Right.
so like who would be, I don't know who that would be, that person here, and I mean,
Well, it might have to be a new position established. It
Right.
seems like you guys are kind of busy.
right. I mean, that's the
Get
thing.
that sense.
I became full-time just in May of last year, and it's still a little amorphous of what my duties would be, like it
Mhm.
started out as just the agent for the Conservation Commission, but here I am with y'all, which I don't
Yeah.
know, green communities, and I like that a lot,
Right.
but I do not think I'm equipped to create a plan myself. However, I would be able to like work with
Yeah.
a consultant and then have the plan and act to it and kind
Right.
of lead that, but to create a plan, it's really hard. So I don't know, even, I think
No,
it'd be
it's-
awesome if you guys do want to
Yeah.
take it on, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
But an alternative I can look into, maybe
Yeah.
try and see who we can reach out to for like a proposal.
I'll do some research on what other municipalities have done.
Yeah.
Look at
thinking- I'm
Worcester.
thinking-
Worcester has their website. I mean, when you see,
Yeah.
they really have it pulled together, I think. I'm very, and I think also, it might be Brookline also has a pretty good website.
Yeah,
I'll send, because I've been looking at a lot of them.
Sure.
I know Worcester, and
Yeah.
there's another, I think the other one that was impressed by was Brookline, but many cities do have
Right.
a lot going on in terms of reaching out to the community and
Right.
establishing programs. And
Yeah, so speaking of which, I just, we had talked last time about this like survey potentially, or I think Connie Denham had mentioned wanting to do something and like the housing partnership also being interested in that. And she also then emailed me and said, there was some sort of like high-speed bus route that she's interested in, like so there's like a very comprehensive look at like all these different things we might try to do a survey about. So I did reach out just last week to Jana, who's the chair of the Affordable and Fair Housing Partnership. I haven't heard back from her yet. Apparently, Jack,
what's she the head of, I'm sorry?
she's the head of the Affordable and Fair Housing Partnership, their committee here in town. And I think Jackie Brusso Ferreira is on that as well.
Okay, I know.
And Connie had reached out to her directly just to sort of have a high level conversation about it. Anyway, seems like there's some interest in maybe trying to put something together. Be something else we think about, like from a planning perspective, like let's find out what people are interested in, or let's find out what we could be doing to advance, the goals of the city, as well as like, what do the people that live here want?
And we're talking in terms of
What are they interested in?
conservation. What
We're
is
talking in terms of, from our perspective, yeah, certainly like energy, conservation, sustainability, we can be expansive, even if our
No,
city
I know.
language is
I
not
think
so
you can
expensive.
interpret what it says about us to be practically
Right.
anything, but it's
Anything can be made about energy if you're like it to be. So, but anyway, so that's something that we could think about. Again, we don't have any progress on that at the moment, and be mindful of people.
But this would be a lot of questions, and we could include questions about energy
It
and
could,
conservation.
yeah, it could, right. Maybe a part of that, maybe something that's about, housing. Of course, there's this
Right.
intersection where, gas and heat pumps and things like
Right.
that intersect with like housing costs and availability,
Right.
that sort of
Right.
thing. So I don't know, we'd have to think about, have a conversation with them, maybe even like a joint meeting that we would
Yeah.
need to talk through, like what we want to do, how we would even get it out to people. I know that was-
involved with that.
What's that?
Denham.
Well, she reached out to she was talking to them. She brought it to us at the last meeting.
Right, okay.
And so without her here and without having any direct contact with them so far, other than an unanswered email, like don't have a lot to report, but something that sort of goes into this, and maybe I'll create a separate section in the agenda that'll talk about, long-term planning, long-term, like sort of fact-finding, surveying, thinking about what our place is, what we want to shoot for.
Yeah,
It's a little bit more.
Respond to those surveys.
It is, right. I know that the Municipal Light Plant did a whole thing around it. I know they didn't try to figure out like, emailing, Facebook, whatever, like, or can you send, get a mailer out to everybody that then they, or fill out or to go to a link online to do or whatever.
When we did the open space plan and worked with this third party to generate the plan, to write the plan, that was part of it, was public outreach. And they did,
Yeah.
they hosted a meeting where people could come and participate. They, a public meeting, they did a survey, they did all this stuff. There was a mailer, it was like involved, but
Yeah.
it's nice to have this, this third party that was just pursuing it, so.
And for aggregation, we're gonna have to do all that as well. We have to do
That's right.
marketing, we have to do outreach, we have to do public hearings. There'll be, again, for mailings to people, there's opt-out, people have to be informed of those sorts of things. So there are gonna be, multiple chances to reach people, but, you do it too much and you lose things as well. So it's all about maximizing exposure at minimal touch points. And, which like, social media posts, we can, do more of those. I think there's been, a little bit, but maybe do one around aggregation. We can talk more about that. I know there's been a few ideas kicking around, and as this heat pump program maybe comes together, that would be another place to start doing.
Yeah.
So consider that new other business sort of like master plan is like.
Oh, yeah, I put that under new other
business. Yeah. Is there anything else anybody has to bring up for today?
This information I'm seeking, I can't remember what we said is the status of the municipal light plant, where that sits, where that's sitting right now, and
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I know it was approved by the voters.
I think it's been sent to the state, and the state, and so they have to okay it. I think that's where it is right now.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure, I think.
Okay.
and
Okay.
remind me, we were just going to be the kind of manager of the system. The idea, I don't know if it was that specific and what was approved, but the city would manage it, but not be like Holyoke Electric, whatever.
No, it wouldn't be, and it's not gonna be electric, it's really just gonna be for internet.
I know, oh, that's right, still, not electric, but I mean, that the infrastructure would still be maintained by some private company that the city would hire if they did the high fiber optic system.
As far, I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know the specifics on
What
that.
was the committee or group where does that information sit? Who was
Ask Tom Peak.
Peaks?
Yeah, Tom was involved. My friend Jason was on the committee too. I can ask him, I might see him.
Just like that.
Yeah,
It's actually what they sent to the state, or what it is on the city's website.
Yeah.
It's hard to find it because it's in the minutes of the city council meeting where it got accepted. I forget what month that was.
All right.
At least that's how I found it, because I was looking for it, because I thought we were gonna have electricity. I was really checking it out.
yeah.
I'll email some people.
So
Okay.
I have one other thing, which is just to think about, there's some people who have kids in the public schools who have been really interested in doing something about idling. You made me remember about this, and they've put out posters periodically. But if we really wanted to do something about idling, we'd have to get the police involved. If people started getting ticketed for idling,
Mhm.
I think people would stop idling. So I don't know if we want to ever get involved with that, but just throwing it out there.
Yeah. My understanding is the anti-idling campaign is focused on like city-owned properties.
Well, the Paula Garcia, who was the mother who was really doing it, they were trying to get the school buses to stop idling, but also all the parents pick their kids up at school. And
It's a city
idle.
property.
Right.
But I don't think that from their point of view, they were like focused on city property. It just happened that she was doing that with kids. And so the school was, buildings were the obvious place to focus on. But,
Yeah. And I've seen those posters, so they're cool. They're
Yeah.
cute.
They're adorable,
There's some
yeah.
at the city hall as well. There's
but no, but in my, I'm more cynical than she is. I mean, I think that's lovely and the kids really enjoyed doing it and they got into the Gazette, but I don't think it's had any effect on anyone idling. I just don't think, I mean, if you really want to stop idling, there has to be a consequence. It's against the law.
Has to be enforcement, yeah,
You know,
like anything.
No, it's one of my pet peeves. In fact, I was in 1970, I fought with my high school administration to get our school buses to stop idling, and whatever, 50 years later, the same phenomenon.
Yeah, it's good now.
well, I would like to do something about that, like places like the CVS drive up for, all those cars idle. I feel so bad for the people who have to be at that window breathing all that in. It's just awful.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thought. I did.
Well,
It's really just, I'm just bringing it
Yeah,
up.
throw it out there. It's
my
fine.
long-term plan on climate and emissions,
That's-
gas emissions, that's one thing to take a look at.
Right.
For sure.
Starbucks built a place in
Mhm.
Hadley, right, that they can handle 100 cars at a time or something. It's freaking crazy that anybody's approving permits for places like that.
Well, we have a Starbucks coming to town now too, right?
Yeah.
Right over that
And
same
see, that
area.
goes
So,
back to what you were saying. We don't have a citywide policy about what we're doing about the climate.
mhm.
If we did, we could say,
Yeah.
well, yes, you can open a Starbucks, but you can't have drive-through.
Yeah.
Right. Where you're gonna have, right.
Or I don't know how you could make everybody actually turn their car off. And that's what I do when I'm at CVS.
Yeah.
But I don't
Well,
know.
it's like somebody in the car. I mean, the hybrids now have,
Shut up.
not just or like the hybrid electric.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get it right. They'll shut off
Oh, they do it automatic?
automatic.
Oh, I didn't
A lot of them because of low, and then because they.
I thought it's only for people with hybrids and electric
There
cars.
you go.
Oh, sure.
Anyway.
All right.
Can I get hold of that recording so that I can fix my notes?
Absolutely.
Possible to do
Yeah,
that?
yeah, absolutely.
Just send it.
Yeah, I can send it to you, and I'm gonna send it to East Hampton Media too, because this used to just go straight to them, so I'll figure it out. I'll have the recording, so I'll.
So I will fix this
That's fine. Yeah.
and I'll send it to you.
Okay.
And,
I'll just, say
what I'm
that
supposed to do.
we'll, I've got the upcoming meeting dates on here. We'll have another quick round with everybody to see if we need to adjust dates and times. I do hate for, half the people to not be here. Misty did tell me ahead of time, but, so we need to push a little bit later or do a different day. We'll talk about that. But for now, those are the dates temporarily.
Yeah. And as I said, I can definitely come at other times. Like,
Yeah. And I can be somewhat flexible, it just depends. So, all right. Well, that is the end of the agenda. Got a movement to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded. All in favor?
Oh,
Aye. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, Cassie, for
Yes.
the assistance with the technical side.
I, for one, am happy to have face-to-face meetings.
I like it too.
I mean, learning from each other.